Good afternoon. My name is Dan Vandermuelen. I'm going to save the majority of my introduction here and carry on with this presentation. I'm going to venture out on here is my interaction with animals and the land. And we're going to start off with 3 different uses of land with animals and then go into some of the no-till work and production that I've been doing. So with 3 different livestock situations, we have our public lands, normal pasture lands, and then some of this management-intensive grazing I've been dabbling with in the last few years. Now, our rangelands can require extensive water use, water infrastructure. And let me back up to the health of the animal. You need good water, good ground, good plants, good mineral and salts. So in my desert scenarios, the water is imperative. I don't want an animal walking 5 miles to go get a drink of water necessarily. And in the pasture, it tightens down, and in the management-intensive grazing, it gets even tighter, moving water daily. So with our rangeland here, it's a high cost of production, high cost of building it, and maintaining it it's a seasonal deal. Things can freeze up in our country. In the pasture, there it's extensive underground piping, and I get year-round use out of that. The management-intensive grazing utilizes smaller troughs, a lot of portable water lines and systems moving it all daily. Ultimately, here in the end, it's mineral distribution from the animals, as they will release their nitrogen or their urine within 100 yards of a water trough, and they will go defecate 100 yards from where they're ruminating. And so they have their favorite places. They might go hide underneath the same tree every day and then crap right next to it. With the management-intensive grazing, right here at the bottom, distribution of animal waste is one of the key benefits of that system. So here is a 25,000 acre BLM allotment. I've got a well up here and 15 miles of water lines and odds and ends tanks here and there. These yellow dots are 30,000 gallon storage tanks. The blue lines are fence lines out there. Quite a system. Only took like 5-6 years to build. Still working on it. Made a change here this last year. You see the focused area around this trough here with some cattle. This is a storage tank and the primary well. Costs associated here, we were burning up a generator every 3 years, burning 35 gallons of fuel every summer, put in a solar system, and it's done, paid for in the first year, and it's been flawless ever since. This has really enhanced my entire water situation out there. If we had a moment to spare, we were traveling out to that site to check on the generator, go change the oil, yada yada. Around these watering areas, this is a 24-foot trough, holds almost 7,000 gallons right there. Around these watering areas, we find our highest concentration of traffic. And within the public lands, we're very sensitive about what people think about it. Well, somebody could come out here and take a picture of this post-grazing, and it's gone. It's leveled out. It's amazing how well it grows back. That tank's 3 foot tall, and things really don't grow out there in the desert over 10 inches. Here is a pasture situation. Here I got a portable trough, but here we're on like 10 acres. Temporary system. And here is another pasture situation, but it's kind of the break between range, ground, and pastures. The white lines are fence, and last spring I put up another watering facility in this corner where the animal can easily access the water. They could be in this field, then I can move them up into this field and gate off these other fields and give them a chance to grow back. Here's that system, put in a little solar array there. This is just, I only have 30 foot of pipeline there, and this is a self-contained system that produces a lot of water. Here we get into some of the management-intensive grazing and a temporary water line around this corner here. This is all interior fence. semi-permanent, and then these would be temporary fences. You can see where the cattle came in. They're first here, then they're here, then they're here, then they're here, now they're here. You can see them on this great Google Earth imagery. We'll move them from there to there. Here's further breakdown of how the fences would work. Here's the animals, and you can literally see on satellite imagery where they pissed, because the grass will be twice as tall, 3 times as tall, and a deeper green. Up closer yet. So the management intensive grazing, we've got an even distribution of manure and urine, increased organic matter, we're hearing about that. You guys can read through it. Here is my water trough for 160 pairs and 5 bulls. And that's 50 gallons. Move it daily. This spring, the seed head kind of got ahead of me, but this is looking pretty lush. This was grazed over here, and they just got moved into there. The animals get very comfortable with us. We're learning more and more about them. I don't know if you can see this here, but these lines here, and there's some flat lines across their back, are signs of impeccable health. They're very curious. I just go out in the field and they gather around me. On the right here, what are they doing for us? Last summer I was busy counting worms. This summer I was busy counting and evaluating the dung beetle that was growing in some of my patties. Essentially my cow pies are obliterated in about 10 days. This cow pie on the left, it looks a little old, it's getting holy. This is an up close picture of the same thing, all these burrow holes. I swipe a foot through it, and that cow pie was less than 24 hours old. But within a week, it'll be utterly gone. What else is doing well? My bee populations are skyrocketing. My beekeeper has 3,500 hives. And the hives on my property were producing 20 pounds per box more than any other hive in southern Idaho. And this one is just about chock full. Along those lines, the bird populations are a little scary in my place. I'll have 500 blackbirds within my cows, and sometimes a bunch of crows and ravens, and those darn sage grouse get in there too sometimes. Conventional farming, we're kind of confused about what our priorities are and our problems, symptoms, and issues. Our number one problem, as Mira was saying, is poor carbon management. Symptoms are weeds and bare ground. Our issues are water, quantity and quality, and erosion. How to manage for carbon. Now we kind of switch gears into some of this management-intensive grazing and the no-till. So we minimize soil disturbance, energize with diversity, cover the soil, maximize living roots, and insert livestock to complete the whole system. Here we are minimally disturbing the soil and planting 15 things in one pass. The following day, all this grass and what alfalfa is in there is standing right back up like I was never there. One irrigation and the drill rows are gone. Here's a little diversity planted in a dryland farm. Not a dryland, well, dry land, but there's some irrigated crop behind us here, but this was bone dry, planted middle of summer, maybe received a ½ inch of precip and produced this right here.
How big was that turnip, radish?
That radish is about 16, 17 inches long.
You haven't distorted it with your camera or anything?
I do photograph a lot of big game and whatnot. You want to get it way out there close. You want to step back from it a little. You can see right where the soil line was, so it basically heaved up from there. Covering the soil. Stole this photo off the internet, but it really portrays 85-degree soil temps. Dist, it's 105 degrees, same day, same time. And that is dehydration. Maximize living roots. This is another stolen photo. It doesn't do a very good job here because there is no diversity in that. Here is inserting livestock. They're in just this paddock right there, about 3 acres. So then we get into the soil food web and what's actually going on below the ground. And our number one objective there is organic matter right here. This is what we can affect today, this year, this season. If we can increase the organic matter 1%, we increase the water holding capacity 16,000 gallons per acre in just the first foot of the soil. And at that point, as some of us are following Gabe Brown, and we get our organic matter up to 8 and 10%, we can monopolize on a November rainstorm in July the next year. Now, the only other thing I want to point out here, Mir was referring to funguses, and we heard about them earlier. We see this. The plants are putting out. We got a lot of one-way streets here. When we look at the fungus over here, it's a two-way street. Funguses are directly giving back to plants moisture and nutrient sharing between plants. Here's Elaine Ingham, a lot to be learned from her. Terribly distorted photo. She's a genius, and she's not trying to sell you anything. Healthy soils. We've been talking about this. Here's more photos. This is where I'm going into kochia that's 4 feet tall, just seeding right into it. Here is more dry land and a lot of diversity. We got 2 photos here, but when I went and planted this for a person, it was just gray and only thistles would grow out there for years. Thistles and some wild oats. It's very alkaline soil. But we got a beautiful start there on quite a variety of life. Here is that same radish we were looking at earlier. I planted a perennial seed mix for a fellow, and it was in that one field there. He wanted a perennial habitat mix, and the seed cost is very high, and I recommended that we go in with some other varieties to enhance the biological activity of the soil, but he really wanted to move forth with the perennial seeding, which is about $50 an acre just in seed, and I added on about 75 cents or 80 cents to the acre and planted a very small quantity of these radishes and turnips. But what we found there in this dryland scenario is competition was not an issue. It was some husbandry here or benefiting each other, missing the word. But here we have a sprouted, established alfalfa. Here we have some grass, vice versa. But they only were able to do their thing, sprout out of the ground, and take off and live because they're living in the shade of that daikon radish right there. There was no other establishment in that entire field other than underneath the radishes. And this thing weighs like 3-4 pounds. I mean, there's got to be a quart of water in it in itself. So here's some more photo tours from some things. This right here is all coming after wheat harvest planted in early August. So this right here is your classic cover cropping, no-tilled right into wheat stubble. This is 10 weeks afterwards. This is a mix with a lot more brassicas in here. Here we have Marlon Winger, the state agronomist with an NRCS. On the right here, got some radishes or some brassicas here. That's some sunflowers coming up, buckwheat flowers here and there. Very productive. Here's another person that I planted for closer to Shoshone. And this was a beautiful scenario here where this guy had he combined and the water was back on in 4 days. So he combined, baled, spread some compost out there, water was back on, and he's probably looking at 3.5, 4 tons to the acre pretty easy there. And he's really excited about it. And I think I ran over time, my friends. That's the end of the show.